which came or which got invented on the blockchain. It's called Uniswap protocol. So this, if Aave and InstaDF are comparable to banks, Uniswap is comparable to BSE, Bombay Stock Exchange, NSE or Nasdaq. BSE and NSE works or Nasdaq works only 6 hours a day and only from Monday to Friday. This protocols are like, or this exchanges are 24/7 and they are global. They are permissionless. On BSE, if I am correct, there are 5,000 corporates which are listed, 5,000 to 8,000, which is highest in the world. This also got invented and got launched in last one and a half year, and they already have 8,000 to 9,000 tokens listed on it. They did a trade volume of around $614 billion, and they are permissionless. So if you launch a token, let's say if someone launches the Goa Management Association token, they can just integrate with this, no need of any red prospectus or anything, and they can provide liquidity. And that token, if there are users, if there are people, if there are speculators, prices can go up or down, whatever. So practically it's a permissionless way to list the tokens or coins on this exchange, and they are being used. Like, I think $614 billion volume is, I think, way bigger than even what BSE does on the normal equity side. Another interesting aspect of this is, you see on the right side there are 4,400 delegates. So these are like board members, 4,400 board members. So there is a founder, but there is no CEO or a head office of this Uniswap protocol. And like all these 4,400 people what they can do is they can just like vote on things like changing the color or investing in something which will make Uniswap more popular, but they can't switch off this protocol. The way nobody can switch off the Bitcoin protocol, same way, like from Bitcoin now, things have evolved to a point where even this kind of exchanges are difficult to stop. And it's not just Uniswap. All these codes are open source, so anybody can copy and create a competitor of it. So within 1 year, Uniswap already has 4 to 5 competitors, and all of them are doing this amount of business. So what is the future of finance? So initially we used to trust, all the lending and borrowing transaction used to happen where we used to trust a person, individual. But then we moved our trust from a single person to an organization. So instead of trusting a single manager or a single shareholder, we started trusting, let's say, organizations like SBI or ICICI or JP Morgan. So we upgraded our trust from a person to an organization. Now it's time to upgrade our trust from organization to algorithm. So whenever we upgraded our trust from a person to organization, we have seen that, let's say, currently interest rate or deposit rate in Bihar or Goa is almost same thanks to national banks like SBI and ICICI and Central Bank. But when you see interest rate between Japan and Euro where the rates are negative, and places like Brazil and India where rates are high, so there is no way this arbitrage is getting balanced. But blockchain is helping to get those arbitrages balanced. So person in Japan will be happy to lend up to a person in Brazil at 2-3% because he is getting negative rates in his own country, while a person in Brazil will be happy to borrow at 2-3% because in his country he will not get a loan more like at a lesser than 10% interest rate. So we have seen that whenever we have upgraded our trust, efficiency of capital has improved. So initially when we used to trust only a single person, interest rate used to be 30-40%, and that is also still there. If you go into those shadow one-to-one person market, that they charge 3% per month interest rate. So blockchain and crypto is kind of helping to balance those global arbitrage. So future of finance and human organization. So Bitcoin, instead of saying as money without comment, I can say that it's a money with trust and algorithm. Ethereum is a smart contract or kind of a contract with trust in algorithm. So we all know legal contracts, right? Those are enforced by the judiciary and the government. So here the contracts or the smart contracts are enforced by algorithm, not by, because if we are doing lending and borrowing, which is across the borders, there is no single jurisdiction. So the only way people will trust is through algorithms. Because I am not going to trust some bank in Japan, and the person in Japan is not going to trust, let's say, ICICI or HDFC. So algorithms are providing a common platform for trading and doing the commerce. So DeFi is bank with trust in algorithm. NFTs are non-fungible tokens, which are property rights with trust in algorithm. DAOs are organizations, or we can say corporate 2.0, which are more decentralized and can easily set up, and people can coordinate and work across it. So Uniswap, Aave, all those are DAOs. We have seen that corporates have a better shelf life. ITC, Indian Tobacco Corporation, is 100 years old. They are easy to scale, and they also create more value than mom and pop stores in general. So DAOs and decentralized protocols are being estimated that because of their open and decentralization will be even bigger than the corporates which currently exist. Like Bitcoin is already $1 trillion, and there are only 3 or 4 corporates which are bigger than $1 trillion. So non-fungible tokens. This is a digital painting called Beeple's Everyday. It's a collage of 5,000 paintings, digital paintings, which this American artist made from 2008 or 9 to until 2020. And this guy, Vignesh Sundar, some guy from Chennai, now a crypto billionaire, he bought this painting at $69 million. That is around 550 crores. He bought this digital painting, it's just a JPEG file. It's nothing, it's not even physical. He bought this painting from a very reputed auction house called Christie's. And yeah, so NFTs are something similar to sale deed. So if we do a property transaction, we have a sale deed. So those sale deeds are registered on a neutral third-party registrar. So the registrars are practically neutral, and those registrars are maintained by governments. So NFTs are sale deed, and blockchains here are the third-party registrars on which these NFT tokens are kind of minted or registered. So crypto is not just changing central bank and finance, it's also disrupting the culture and art as well. Initially, mainstream media underestimated the use of automobile, and they said it will never replace postcards. Even the inventor of telephone underestimated its use. So currently, Bitcoin and crypto industry is almost $3 trillion economy, which is equivalent to Indian economy, and it's non-government SEZ, and it's growing without any stimulus package from any government. In fact, most of the governments are hostile to this economy. So I would say that in a fragile dollar system, with depreciating INR and innovation-free Indian stock market, if you see top corporates, refineries are 200-year-old business model. Top banks in India are 200-year-old business model. IT companies are 30-year-old business model. We recently saw big IPOs which are new tech like Zomato and Paytm, but they have been pretty much were not able to enrich the investors. And as we have seen, people in Hyderabad, people in London, or people in even Africa are building on this open and permissionless blockchains. So that's where the innovation is happening. And just to give a size and Indian context, so as I say, Bitcoin is the digital gold, Ethereum is the Android, open source Android, Monero is a privacy currency, it's similar to cash, Aave or InstaD app built by those guys in Hyderabad is similar to banks. SushiSwap or the Uniswap, those exchanges are similar to NSE, BSE or Nasdaq. So UPI, all of us use UPI, right? And they did around $200 billion worth of transaction in the month of October 2021, and that was highest for the UPI till date. Bitcoin did around $1 trillion in the same month. So this is the difference in the scale. UPI is permission and it's closed garden, while Bitcoin is open source and it's a open garden. Ethereum right now is 2 times its market cap